That's weird. We are live, but it seems to be not the one I want.
It's not as live as you would like.
Yeah, that's super weird. I think it's because of some delay. I'm not sure, but we're live. So, hi, Mike Markey. How are you tonight?
I'm good, Aaron. How are you?
So far, so good. I've had some tech challenges. I'm wearing my large headphones as opposed to my little AirPods. I don't know, that wasn't working. I think we're good on the live stream. It could be just like this much of your head, but you're here to talk about research laboratory Chicago APLN is putting on. And how would you like to kick this off? What would you like to say?
That's a good question. So yeah, I'm one of the organizers for the Agile Professional Learning Network, which of Chicago, and basically, and right now it's only of Chicago. That's all that our version of APLN is. But every year we put on a conference of some sort, and this year we came up with what we think is kind of a unique approach to conferencing. And we've dubbed this the Research Laboratory 2021. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight, this new idea.
This new idea. Okay. Well, what is this new idea? What are you hoping to accomplish, or what kind of problem are you trying to solve?
Okay, so that's a good place to start. So this started, it's always good to have an idea what the first problem you're trying to get out of the way. And we actually came up with 3 ideas that we're trying to fix. The first one kind of comes out of our history from running the prior conferences. How many times have you been to a conference? You attend a session, you see a really neat technique, you learn a new skill, you learn some new way to approach things. And then you go back home and months go by before you even find an opportunity to apply it. And by then, you've kind of forgotten the nuances of it. It's not fresh in your mind anymore. You got to go back and learn it again. So it would be nice if there was a way to have immediate feedback or immediate application of a new skill. So that's the first problem we're trying to come up with a solution for. The second one has to do with the types of presentations that people bring. So, we will put out a call for presenters, and they will come up with this really cool idea that they'd like to talk about. And it tends to come off sort of as an experience report. They share with the world what they learned, what they came up with. But for the most part, what we get there is sort of a sanitized view of their experience. Like, nobody really wants to tell us the hardships they went through. They want to tell you how it worked. So you see that, you go, hey, that's a cool idea. I'd like to go try that out. And then you do, and you keep running into the rocks. You run into all the same difficulties that they ran into, but you have no visibility into what they ran into. So you've got no experience to gain from that. So that's the second thing that we'd like to find a solution for. And then the third one, now let's take a different type of thing. You are a person who works at a company. Maybe you're the owner, maybe you're a leader of a development group, or maybe you're just a leader of a business unit, and you've got a problem to solve. You've got a vexing issue that is keeping you up at night, and your team can't come up with a way to solve the problem. You don't know what the solution is, but you've heard that there's things out there that might help. And one of those things you might have heard about is Agile, but you don't even know who to go to learn about that, right? You don't even know who to turn to. And so that might send you down a path looking for consulting companies or all sorts of things, but those can tend to be a pricey option. And I guess I should know, because I am an Agile consultant. So that's sometimes a big ask for somebody who's got an immediate issue they need to solve. So what could we do to bring that together? And then some organizations just simply don't have the budget for that sort of thing. Say a nonprofit or like a small company that's just starting out. but they still got this problem that needs to be solved.
Mm-hmm.
And so we might even say that there's potentially a fourth thing. There are a lot of people that we have who attend our meetup every month. And we've been doing this for 12 and a half years, believe it or not. This is the longest running meetup group in Chicago in the Agile space.
Nice.
And we get people all the time who are kind of trying to make a career shift. They're trying out what they're learning in the Agile space. They're trying to get some experience. But this is just like coming out of college. You can't get a job without experience, and you can't get experience without the job. So how can we give people practical experience doing something that's related into the Agile field? So what if we took all those ideas and we meshed them all together? We mushed it all together and we said, instead of you having to wait for a problem to arise that you can apply these new skills you're learning to, we presented you with the problems. As part of the conference, we present the problem. And then instead of you not knowing how to work together with a group of people to come up with solutions for an issue, we help you build a cross-functional team that will address the problems and try to come up with solutions. And then we partner with an organization that has those challenges, and they agree that they will let you try out these ideas. They're going to take your ideas, put them into practice, and then we're going to get to see the real-time feedback. We're going to get what worked, what didn't work. And these research teams that we form, they persist a little bit longer than the conference, long enough to get feedback from that client. What worked, what didn't, what could we try differently? And they get to iterate on the idea for a couple of sprints. And then at the end of that process, how do we help the community at large? How do we share that information with the outside world? What if, and this idea actually came out of attending the Agile Alliance conferences, where they make you write an experience report as a white paper, and it goes through a peer review stage and it's edited. And they make sure you've got some hard science and some data to show before they let you speak. Mm-hmm. What if the end result of this was a white paper, where each research team produced a document that talks about the trials and tribulations that they went through, where they, this is what we tried, this is what the results were, then we tried this, and this is what the results were, and then we shifted to this. And we took all the experience reports that come out of that conference, and we bind them all together, and we produce a book, and we make that available. That's the output of the conference. And then the whole Agile community gets the benefit from it. So we're looking at this as a win-win-win, right? We've got people who don't have experience who get to take part in a team. We get organizations that don't have answers to the problems who get a supply of solutions that they can try out. And we get information that gets to be shared with the community in a real usable way of actually applying. That's our crazy harebrained scheme in a nutshell.
Sounds fascinating to me. And while we're talking, I'm also paying attention to what's going on with the chat on the live stream and seeing if anybody has questions there. Harsha says hi.
Hey, Harsha.
And yeah.
Is that my Harsha?
It could be. And
it
also, oh, I don't even want to try the second name. It's a username. I think I'll just leave that one alone. And so far, saying the stream looks good. I don't see any questions at this point. I have a couple though.
Okay, shoot.
Okay. So first off, I'm curious about the research teams, how those are being formed. And also at the end, when you're talking about white paper, one thing I was also thinking about, yes, I do get excited by listening to some expert at a conference, and sadly, they don't come back with me to the organization to help. And honestly, sometimes I get a little bored listening to the luminary. So will the clients also participate in some end result, not only white paper, but would they also be able to try out maybe some sort of speaking at the end of this with your research lab? So
that's a good
there was a
question.
lot there, but
Yeah, that's actually a good question. So, you know, and I can come at it a couple of ways. So first of all, yes, we would definitely want the client company to have some of their people involved in the process. Everyone else have the ability to gain some of the skills that we're talking about applying here. They would work, man, you know, as the conduit of information that's going to clients, so that we don't necessarily have to have direct contact with the client, which could bring some complexity into the thing. There is that opportunity for the client to be involved.
So who's on the research team? How are those being put together?
Okay, so what we've actually already begun, we've put out a call for challenges. We're calling them a call for challenges. So we're looking for organizations that think that they've got an interesting business problem to solve. And it doesn't even have to be something that we traditionally think of as being a problem in search of an agile solution. Because as we all know, agile is crossing the boundaries away from software. It's heading into business practices, you know, marketing teams, legal teams, all sorts of groups within the enterprise are trying out agile solutions. Mm-hmm. So there's opportunity here. And that's another one of the things that we could potentially be providing the community is not everybody gets a chance to try out those types of solutions and solve those domain issues. And maybe we can actually provide the experience to do that. So we put out the call for challenges. We're hoping to find these client partner organizations that think that they have a problem that they'd like to find a solution for. We're going to interview them. We're going to talk through what their problem is, see if we can articulate it well, find out what their comfort level is in sharing information, and at least get their agreement to say, yeah, we're willing to take part in this. We're going to try out the solutions. We're ready to do this. And then at the end, yes, you can share the experience. Like we are on board with the idea of sharing that experience. And if we can find those people, then we're going to put that information out as part of the, hey, there's this conference coming. You could take part in a research team to solve one of these issues, and we'll give the list of issues that we have come up with. And then you get to kind of give us, I'd like to take part in solving that problem. I think I would have fun on that team. And if I can't get in that one, I would like this team. And if I can't get in that one, and give us a top 3. Mm-hmm. And we'll do our best to put people who are interested in solving the problem together with a problem that they're interested in solving.
Great. Harsha would like to know how, as a Scrum Master, can she participate in this initiative?
Okay. So that's a great question, Harsha. Basically, we think that each research team is going to need at least 3 main roles in order to maintain viability as a viable research team. So we want, first of all, a chief researcher. We want somebody who, if nothing else, they're going to make sure the white paper gets written. They're going to be making sure that the results are captured. The second thing that we're going to need is someone who's going to be a coordinator for the group. And that's where I think a Scrum Master is really going to find an opportunity here. Because somebody's going to have to wrangle, if you will, a group of disparate individuals from many different places and say, and this coordination will start at the conference itself, but we're going to meet periodically throughout the duration of the trial here. We're going to come together, I don't know, every other week, maybe once a month, whatever the duration and whatever the cadence that the group thinks would be most appropriate. And that Scrum Master is going to be the person responsible for trying to bring all those people together and make sure that they stay engaged. So that's 2 of the big roles that we're thinking. So we need a research person, we need a coordinator of some sort. And then, and obviously we need the product owner. So we need the client, whoever that's going to be. So we're going to need at least that in order to have some sort of continuity throughout the process. And then there's obviously the researchers. which is going to grow out of the potential attendees to the conference itself. Oh, and one of the other things that we're thinking is this white paper that comes out of this, everybody who's on the research team gets a co-author credit. Like they get listed as one of the authors. They participate in supplying that data. They help build the thing out. So you too could have your name on a document that's been published and put that in your LinkedIn profile and say, look, I'm a published author, a luminary of agile knowledge.
Exactly. Which would help for once we open back up for submitting to talk at other conferences. So it also gives a little practice on that. And I would think as well in the Scrum Master role, it sounds like there's self-organization in here. And so coming up with organizing principles and working agreements and helping to structure it as well might be for that Scrum Master role too.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So where did this come from? It sounds like you're trying to get away from a traditional conference, but what was the initial spark that generated this idea?
Oh, sure. So it was sort of one of those brainstorming fever dreams that so it started with the statement, do we do the conference this year?
Okay.
Last year we actually canceled the 2020 conference because we couldn't get face-to-face. And that was always the thing that made the conference experience interesting for us. And so we assumed the rest of the community also found that to be interesting, that you actually get out of your normal work environment, you spend time with people who are doing this stuff that aren't tied up in your normal day-to-day. And it's sort of an escape, but it's an escape with a purpose. You're increasing their knowledge. One of the reasons we didn't switch the face-to-face conference to virtual last year is Zoom fatigue. Everyone we knew was spending all day online in a video conference like this, and we could not imagine forcing them to sit for an all-day conference of the same thing they're doing all day long.
Sure.
So we said, how do we make that experience different? And so that was one of the questions that came out of this. The other one was, it kind of grew out of this concept of how do we instantly apply these changes? How do we find people who are actually interested in presenting problems and having those problems solved? So by the time as we got through this, we're like, well, what if we actually produce problems for the teams, that these groups would solve during the conference? And that got to be, well, how are you actually going to pull that off? We've got to find businesses that are willing to share their problems with us.
Yeah.
Where are we going to dig those people up? And it's like, well, we'd have to filter for that. We'd kind of have to let people know, hey, when you get involved in this, you're going to get some relatively low-cost advice from a group of people who are somewhat experienced in agile practice. Oh yeah, that's right. I missed one of the roles. One of the roles we hope will be necessary is essentially an engagement manager. So somebody who's going to be responsible for communicating with the client and making sure that their needs are being met. So we got those three roles: the Scrum Master, coordination person, the chief researcher, and then the liaison to the client. So those three roles, as long as we can get those three people to agree that they're going to be present throughout the scope of the engagement. And we need the client who wants to do this. So we're dreaming up all these ideas, and we're coming in. And one of the guys on the APLN board works with a lot of nonprofits, and he's a board member on these different organizations. He says, we work with there are so many small nonprofits, small businesses, startups out there that just don't have a lot to spend on. Let's get agile consultants in here. Let's try experimenting this way. And so a lot of what they're trying to do is sort of hit or miss. He goes, we could probably spark interest by saying, look at all the good we're doing for the community at large with this effort. So that's kind of where it came from. All these different things came together, and we thought, well, what if what if we made problems? What if we built teams? What if we let them try this out? And what if we gave them something in return? The idea of the book kind of grew out of the conversation. We always have a giveaway or two at the conference. And it's like, well, now it's a virtual conference. What do you want? A t-shirt? We'll FedEx it to you. That doesn't seem very cool. And that's where we started thinking about that published white paper binder, like all the different things together. And it's like, what if your thank you for taking part in this is that you get to be a published author. That's you add something to your resume, a little experience, a little bit of writing, a little bit of everything.
Yeah. And a couple of comments here. One, it sounds like that also is some collateral for you once you're back in the land of meetups in person, that you can also hand this out. And all of those experiences, I mean, for instance, right here, I have a book of rescues and tragedies in the San Juan Mountains. Why? Because all of these experiences help me stay out of trouble when I'm back there. So being able to thumb through something, I think, is super cool. And the second comment is with nonprofits and with giving back as a certified guide. Now you have my attention, Michael, because there are some Scrum education units that of being in service, right? That volunteering is actually a big part of this community and is actually necessary to maintain certifications. So might be able to pull some in that way. Patricia is wondering, awesome. Are you looking for companies and organizations just in Chicago?
Well, no, as it turns out, because we're going virtual for the conference, technically anyone who's within our time zone reach, who's willing to spend the time to do this is kind of eligible to do this. So we are thinking of expanding this beyond just Chicago.
All right.
And so that might be I'm sorry?
Like the Americas, US, Canada.
So we talked about that and we said, well, we want to get away from that. You're stuck all day in a room mentality. So what we thought of, instead of doing a single 1-day 8-hour conference, which is what we normally do, what if we spread it out over a couple of days and we only did a half day? So if we did, like, say 8 to noon Central Time, because that is Chicago, so that's where we are. But that, we work with a lot of teams that are distributed globally, and we know that teams that are in Europe can work with teams in the United States in the morning hours in the US. Mm-hmm. So for them, it's their evening or their early afternoon. Yeah. But so this could extend across the pond toward Europe. It could extend a little bit west, or we could extend west. And obviously north and south works too. So
same time zones, not so bad.
Yeah.
But maybe even Australia to Ukraine. Almost
that might be interesting. There's a bit of a lag on the time there, so we want it to be something amenable. But I mean, we had a speaker at one of the recent ones who was in New Zealand, and it was right around his lunchtime when we did our evening. So it would be pretty early in the morning.
Yeah, that's why I do 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. So try to hit as many. With my live stream, hit as many time zones as possible. Patricia is also asking, how will you send out the call for participants, both organizations and Agilists? And look at any links we talk about in comments or the description too.
Okay, one of the links that you can look at right now is our website, aplnchicago.org. And that will get you started on what we've already put together. And since we are all Agilists, the creation of the material of this conference that describes the conference is also an Agile effort. So we put priority around the first thing we need, and that first thing we need is organizations to partner with. So that's our highest priority. If we get those, even if we get just a few, enough to get started, then we can start advertising some of the challenges we have, and we can say, now we can put out the call for the in-conference content. So that probably leads us to having the conversation about what the conference will be shaped like. But right now we have been relying on our LinkedIn contacts to spread the word, the meetup group to spread the word, and that's not nearly enough of a reach. So we've done one other podcast prior to this. We're doing this live stream to raise awareness. And we are kind of putting out the call to other meetup groups, other organizations around within earshot who think this is an intriguing idea. We would like to partner with those groups. If you run a meetup group and you would like to expose your people to this, your groups to this opportunity, and especially if one or more of them could come forward with a challenge that we might be able to leverage. If your group is helpful in coming up with that, we want to partner with you too, just in the organization of the conference. One thing I probably should point out is we are operating in a nonprofit mode, and we have gone out of our way to not earn a dime in any of the conferences we've done in the past. So all the money gets spent. And that has been our profit model prior to this. The intent is not to make $1 million running this conference. So I hope that doesn't discourage too many people from taking part in it. But
the fact
that's how we're spreading word and help spread the word. Go to the website. We have a submission place, so you can put in what your challenge with your contact information. One of us will get back to you and we'll have a conversation and see if we can finding a solution. And we also have a FAQ. If you don't see your question there, submit a question and we'll add it to that page as well. So right now we got those two things going.
Sounds good. And I put the link in the chat back as answer to her question there about the call. And
Yeah,
so
awesome.
first and foremost right now is finding challenges. And then from there, we can figure out how to match up. And I'm sure different Agile meetup groups would be very interested to help. What if this gets so successful? What if everybody starts doing research labs? Would that be okay?
That would be great for us. That's why we know that at least that published book is going to have at least one white paper in it. And that's going to be the experience that we had putting this together. And so it's basically, we hope to provide a roadmap. If you want to do one of these, this is what we did. Iterate on that idea. We're not claiming ownership of this. It's public domain information, as all things Agile should be.
It should be, yes.
Yeah.
Indeed.
So, I did allude to the structure, and so a conference where you're expected to go and work might not seem like a great incentive for people. So we still intend to have the trappings of a normal conference, shorter blocks of time. So every day we intend to start with a keynote address where somebody with a really good message to share related will be looking at. We'll do a presentation to start the day off. Then we're going to break out into a multi-track format as we've done in the past. And we're going to present several of the problems each day. So the challenges that we've come up with, the research topics, now we're calling them. So there will be a kickoff thing that describes what each research topic is. So if you have said, I would like to be on a research team for topic A, and topic A is in the first time slot on the first day, then you would go to that. You learn about the problem in detail. You get to talk to the client partner, their representatives. We should by that time have established who those big three roles are. Like, you should know who your Scrum Master is going to be. You should know who your liaison is going to be, and you should know who the chief researcher is. And then you will align as one of the normal researchers by then. So you'll have opportunities to apply to be one of those big three roles for each of the research teams as part of the registration process. So there's this kickoff meeting. That's the second event of the day. Then there's the series of workshops. So there's a workshop where we're skill building, right? And there's going to, again, be multiple tracks each day. So when we look at those problems, one of the calls for participation is, hey, do you know of a skill, a technique, a tool that might help solve some of these problems? Would you like to propose that you be the person who runs that workshop? And so it's sort of a choose your own adventure. Choose the problem you'd like to learn about, choose the series of solutions that you'd like to investigate, and then we're going to finish the day off with a coordination meeting where all the research teams get together. So the people who have agreed to be a researcher, who are aligned with that problem, they get together, come up with their initial recommendations, and then what is their meeting cadence going to be? How often are they going to get together? And that structure will repeat across what we hope will be 3 days of the conference.
Okay.
So if you are not the type of person who wants to be on a research team, you just want to go to a conference and watch a keynote address and learn a new skill, you can do that. We'll have that as an option. You could still attend the keynotes as this type of attendee. You can still go to the workshops. You can go listen to the different problem reports if you want. You probably won't take part in the coordination meetings after that. There would be no value in that for you. But you could still gain something from attendance.
I'm wondering too, so it sounds like you have the keynote and the different research topics. I might pick up something handy depending on people saying, hey, we might want to try this approach. So I might learn something there. What if I had a aha moment and realized, oh, I too have a good challenge in a research topic? Could you throw that in during that conference itself?
That's a neat idea. Maybe we should really be agile about this and leave and not pre-fill all the slots on the last couple of days, so that if we do come up with something that's really intriguing, maybe we could have an impromptu, take more of the open space approach that we are so fond of applying.
Yeah. Okay. And then, so that sounds like up front. Is there another, besides the experience reports, are you going to have some sort of end conference after all of this?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. So one of the things we thought, as a monthly meetup, we're always trying to get people to come in and present. The organizers are always willing to fill in just to keep the docket full, but when we invite other people to speak, it adds extra flavor. Mm-hmm. So we were thinking that each of those experience reports, that's a ready-made docket of topics to cover in the monthly meetups. Gotcha. For some time to come. And maybe even have the opportunity to take it on the road and people can go present at other meetup groups and other.
Yeah. Yes. Because again, always looking for, when I've done some, looking through proposals submitted to conferences and being on some track for the Agile Alliance or whatever, is looking for more unknown voices and trying to elevate and give a hand up to some others. And so it sounds like there are multiple opportunities for somebody to present and talk and get feedback and maybe submit to other meetups and other conferences and just get some practice at all of this and contribute into all of the information in our community about what works and possibly maybe what also doesn't work, and be another voice in our community, because there's room to grow in here for sure.
Yeah, and think of it, it's an opportunity for a group of people to get together and innovate about a new idea, right? A new way of approaching a problem. And that kind of fits in, I mean, the way that APLN has functioned over the last 12 and a half years has been, we're here to serve the community, we're here to help the community grow. And it's what we can enable in that. We get people who are learning, just starting out. They don't have any experience doing that stuff, and we sit down and if those topics come up, we redirect the room. And you've got 9 coaches sitting in the room who are offering their time to help answer your questions. And it's been really a wonderful experience to have the Agile community in Chicago take part in this overall this time. So we really appreciate all the time they're devoting, and I know the attendees are finding value in it too. So we want this to be an extension of that.
This really sounds terrific, so fascinating. And I'm wondering if you could recap just a little bit about what's the same and what's different between your conference or a conference, a meetup. What's same, what's different here?
Okay. Okay. So number one, we're getting rid of that no way to apply the skill set that you learned about, right? There's a ready-made problem in there, and we've already solicited potential techniques that might help solve that. So you're going to get to go learn that technique, help apply that technique, or recommend the application of that technique at the client. So there's an immediate feedback on that, immediate chance to apply that. So there's that. There's kind of a good, the bad, and the ugly concept to this. It's like you're going to get to see the struggle that goes into the implementation of some of these techniques within a real environment, right? Yeah. It's not a sanitized after the fact view of things. This is the difficulty. This is the struggle. The struggle is real. People actually have challenges in doing this. There's a reason why. Mm-hmm. This is a highly skilled role to have. So you get a chance to actually see that in action and take part in learning how to solve problems. So hopefully that's a differentiator. Having the client partners who are getting real help, if we're pulling in nonprofits or people who are, or we're helping benefit a community, or we're doing something like that, that's a real, you're making a difference by participating in this. It's not just you learning for yourself. You're helping learn and solve a problem for somebody else. So it's sort of an altruistic kind of thing. So I think that's a lot of it. It's just an attempt to give people opportunities to learn and grow in their skill set, and actually get something out of attending that you may not have had an opportunity to do before.
Yeah. And I'm also, so those are some differences. This in the trenches, on the ground application, feeling it out, giving back, and then some same things like a keynote or in listening to the pitch and listening to people say, have you thought about this technique? Is I might, even as more of a quote unquote regular attendee, just pick up a technique and say, oh, maybe I'll go back to my office and try this. So that feels a little similar. And then it also feels, we were talking about everything feels the same right now. Yet another Zoom call. And so could you highlight again some of the differences that they're like, you canceled the conference last year because you said, we don't want to sit around on Zoom and do this. So how do you get out of that Zoom fatigue and some of that hitting that wall?
Well, we're hoping that by having the duration each day be a little bit shorter, at least you won't be fatigued at attending this. You might still have to go back to work in the afternoon and go back to that. And I'm sorry. But the one thing, if you're engaged in a conversation, you're actually having a good experience. Those Zoom meetings don't seem quite as much of an ordeal. So we're hoping that by having the immediacy of the effect, that we're going to energize this a little bit more than normal. So we're hoping that we're hoping that's going to lend to this. Also, those conferences have a finite time span. You go to the conference, you might meet a few people who you'll add to your LinkedIn profile, but when it ends, it's work to chase those people down and continue those relationships. This is sort of like a ready-made friend group of people that you're going to talk to again, and you're going to get to work together over a period of time, which is, from a consulting perspective, is an awesome skill to gain. right?
Absolutely.
That you need to learn to work with strangers and find ways to leverage each other's strengths and come to those understandings.
Works well with others. Yeah. And then I think another way past the fatigue is something, one of the things I enjoy about these live streams, and right now talking with you, Michael, is one, I learn something, and two, I get this conversation that is actually a little difficult to do these days. So there is that interconnectedness and forming bonds and this continuity, it sounds like, that happens past the conference, that who knows where that might go with people and social aspect, work aspect, otherwise. So that's super cool too.
Yeah. So we're nuts, right?
Yeah, sounds like it.
This is the most ambitious idea that we could think of having done, and we're undaunted by the prospect. We're like, well, you know what? Let's treat this like an experiment. What would it take to make this work? You know, we're putting out this call for challenges.
Yeah.
We would like to find companies who are willing to partner with us, and we help them. They help people in the community. The Agile community at large benefits from this. Everybody gets something out of it. But we don't know what their concerns are right now. We can imagine what they might be. So reach out to us. Let's have a conversation. Let's talk about what challenges you're facing and see if maybe we can see a path to get an answer to it. And, you know, it doesn't hurt to have a conversation. And that's usually really what we're hoping to do. It rarely hurts to have a conversation. We're not, right. I mean, we're not, yeah. And this is not, we're going to put together a mailing list and send that out to people and say, oh, we're sharing your information with the world. We're not doing that. Your information you share with us is confidential. We will not repeat it to anyone unless you actually want to take part in this. And then we'll talk about what you want to share, right? You might tell us more than you want the world to know, and that's okay. We'll draw the line on that.
Do you foresee the need for NDAs or anything like that to work with these people?
I got to tell you, that was a very interesting conversation. As we were going through this, you know, we're getting all jazzed up about how exciting this could be. And then somebody said, well, what do we do about liability? What do we do about, you know, the fact that we're making recommendations to a business? And so we are basically exploring the concept of incorporating the conference so that there's some protection to that, getting some insurance, liability insurance for the coverage. Having a non-disclosure agreement that will make available. And I'm sure that any company that wants to take part in this has their own NDA already prepped that they share with people. So yeah, there's going to have to be a level of confidentiality that we will respect. And the people who take part in this will respect as well. That's the intent anyway.
Yeah, I think most people will respect that, especially given that some of our values is like this respect versus openness, and you have to know what to just keep behind closed doors.
Yeah.
And
if there's anyone out there listening who actually can foresee some of the challenges we might face ourselves from the legal side of things and would like to offer some guidance on that, we are all ears.
Sounds good. I'm looking at our chat right now. Not nuts, brave. I was going to say nuts and bananas.
That's one of the core Scrum values, right? Courage. We are exhibiting courage.
Absolutely. And the Chicago PDMA might be a good partner in this.
Okay.
It's a comment. Crazy is the new genius. So,
awesome.
Yeah, that's nice. Also, as I'm staring at chat, any final questions out there on the live stream? Now's your chance. We've got about 5 minutes here. Nothing coming up. So, Michael, how would you like to close this off?
How do I want to close this off? We are we're coming up with an idea that we think has some potential. We're looking for people who share that belief and think that they see some potential here and want to take part in it. If you have any inkling of a company that might be interested in being a part of this thing, whether it's, whatever that is, let us know, make a connection. We'll see if we can have a conversation and come up with that list. We are hoping to come up with our list of challenges by the end of the month. We originally had a much sooner deadline, but best laid plans. So, so we're giving till the end of the month to come up with these challenges. We will reach out. We'll have a conversation. We'll figure out if there's any legs to it. What you guys are looking to achieve. We'll try and take that into account in the organization of this. And then once we get past that, then we're going to be putting out the call for people to take part and see if people want to be a part of the research teams. They want us to, and these are the problems we're trying to solve. Do any of those interest you? And try and pair people up with problems that interest them. And then, with an eye toward building that cross-functional concept. So do we have people who are, there should probably be somebody on every team who's had some experience doing this before. That would probably be a good idea. It's not just all learners.
Yeah.
And so we'll try and distribute people to the teams as much as possible and come into the conference with an idea of what the core team looks like. And then, handle some real-time adjustments to those. And then still provide an opportunity for people who just, as much as they like the idea or they are intrigued by the crazy notion that we're trying to put together, they just don't have the time to take part, or they know they can't commit to doing that sort of thing, and still give them an opportunity to do something as well. So we are all learning this together as we go. So come learn with us.
Yeah, I'm in. I'll come learn. And I really thank you for your time, Michael. And thanks everybody out there. And if this is your kind of crazy, like this video, think about subscribing. Maybe I can convince Michael to come back and talk about the challenges that they've had in the research team. See if we can get a check-in a little bit later on all of this.
I would love to do that. And I'd love to come back with good news.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. And Harsha wanted to know if there was any cost involved from the client side. And I think the answer is no.
The answer is hopefully no. So cost is an open issue right now. Part of what we need is we need to know what platform we're going to have the conference on. Zoom alone won't cut it. So we're looking for a virtual conferencing tool. Because there's multiple meetup rooms, there's multiple events going on. We want a repository of documents or the tools that the teams are going to coordinate with. And we want that to persist long enough for all the research topics to go on. So we're in a search for a venue, so to speak, a virtual venue. Those things have costs associated with them. If the cost is prohibitive, there will be a cost for attending. We will also be looking for corporate sponsors, people who maybe don't want to be research partners, but that want to have their name associated with an agile effort in action. There is a cost associated with sponsorship. In return, you get advertising space on the during the event. You'll be able to see what we did in the past if you go to the APLN website. So there's that going on. So those sponsor dollars might help offset some of those costs. We might be able to adjust ticket prices. So if you are going to be a research partner, you're going to get, if you're a sponsor, we generally give sponsors so many free passes to come in. If you are a research partner, there will probably be an equivalent thing. You'll get a free pass for one or more of your people to come in to take part in the research group. So in effect, it should be very little cost for the research partner. At most, they would have to pay for the people they send to the conference. We're not charging for our time, and we're not charging for the it's kind of very low cost consulting.